Please welcome to the stage Vice President, Statewide Services, OEC, Mr. Doug Miller.
There's that Mr. again. Janet, thank you for being here. Safe travels as you go back home to Virginia. I know you're going to be flying into some kind of dangerous weather, but we really appreciate it. Thank our panelists as well. They did a great job. You know, before I get started with my presentation, I just want to take a minute and reflect on, what we've been able to talk about over the last day and a half or so. Hopefully you've enjoyed the conference and learned a little bit or a lot in what we've been talking about. It's just reflecting on what we talked about the last day and a half. We talked about power supply. We talked about, this political road that we're going to have to navigate to kind of make sure that we protect our cooperatives and Craig's roundtable. We talked about leadership and perseverance with Mark last night and with our Project Ohio team and our linemen who went on the mutual aid. We talked about innovation this morning in AI, community. We talked about safety. We talked about teamwork. We have talked about member engagement. We talked about developing our young people. We have covered a lot of ground, and what I'm going to cover with you in just a minute is to kind of put a bow on this is about good governance. And before I do that, I just want to take a minute and recognize our team that puts this conference together. First of all, I want to thank Missy and Ryan, who have just done great work in putting the agendas together and keeping everything on time and getting good speakers and just all the work they put into the attention to detail that you have experienced when you come to these conferences, along with Melissa, who works with them. So let's give them a round of applause. We could real quick. I also want to thank all of our speakers and all of our panelists. Without their participation, whether that be in person or in video form, we wouldn't have the quality of programming that we have, so we really appreciate them. And lastly, I want to make sure that we thank our strategic partners, all the folks out here who have kind of joined our organization to be able to come to these events and network with all of you. We really appreciate all of our strategic partners, the financial support, and more importantly, their presence here at the meeting to connect with all of you. So thank you to them as well. What I'm come up to talk to you about today, I see I got more time than what they gave me now. They bumped up the time to like an hour and a half. I think, should I take that personally or not? I'm not sure. I've been around the electric cooperative network now a long time. See all the gray hair I have. 35 years in the electric cooperative space, in and out of boardrooms, both at Logan County Electric Cooperative as a CEO, been in the Buckeye Power boardroom for just about that period of time, either as a board member or as an employee. I've been in and out of your boardrooms talking about, good governance practices and things like that. And so, I wanted to just kind of put a bow on this conference by talking about some of the best practices that I've seen in good governance, some of the things you've already heard today, but we're just kind of go over them a little bit more. So we're going to talk a little bit about succession planning. We're going to talk a little bit about board development. We're going to talk about, just in general, our CEO perspectives on good governance. And I hope you all take something away from this and learn from your colleagues. Where are we at? So the first thing I want to talk to you about, I have this philosophy, and my team, I know at times they want to kill me when they hear this, but we have this philosophy of trying to find a way to say yes. When, our organization 10 years ago, when I took over and Pat was there, when the statewide was called to do something on behalf of its members, the first answer we would race to would be no. Well, we don't do that. And what I tried to do is change that philosophy to say, we need to try to find a way to say yes. Even if the answer is no at the end of the day, we're going to try to find a way to say yes and help. And this was one I think I put under this category. I got a call one day from Anthony Smith who said, hey Doug, the board was watching a governance video that Pat Mangan put together on the NRECAcooperative.com website. They really like this idea of a board peer review program, and we'd like you to facilitate it. Can you do it? I said, well, I've never done it before, but sure, let's give it a shot. And so we worked together as a team, and we navigated our way through it. And I think it was beneficial. I think you'll hear some of the guys talk about it here in the video. What I wanted to just kind of do is set the stage on what the difference is between the board peer review, and a lot of you have gone through board self-assessments, and really the board self-assessment is really an assessment of the body of the board. It is assessing the performance on when it comes to policy development. It's more of an external perspective on how the board is performing as a whole, how we're complying with, maybe our rules and procedures and kind of the rules of engagement within the boardroom, where the board peer review program really involves personal members evaluating the performance of their fellow board members. So it really is, if you've ever heard of a 360-degree evaluation, where you're asking people around you to give you feedback on how you're performing as a leader, as a manager. The board decided to engage in a program called a board peer review, where they were going to ask each other how they were performing, and we included in that a self-assessment as well. So not only did they ask their fellow 6 board members to evaluate their performance, they were going to self-evaluate and try to match that up to make sure that what the contributions that I think I'm making in the boardroom and my personal performance or my personal contributions to the boardroom matches up to what my fellow board members think. So, what is, what's there to be afraid of, right? Asking somebody what you think, right? Let's see.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
So what's there to be afraid of, right? The truth, huh? Do we really want to know? Do we really want to know the truth, what people think about us? And I give the URE board, a lot of kudos and a lot. It was very courageous for them to want to take on this activity. Again, really pleased that they allowed me to be part of that. But I compared this. I thought, what is there to be afraid of, right? And I thought about what questions don't we ever want to be asked, right? So as a man, how often, your wife, how often do you think of me? That's a trap question, right? Yeah, all the time, honey. I think of you all the time, day and night. Do you like the way I look in this outfit? Absolutely. Do you think my sister is hot? You can be honest. Can you really? Have you ever fantasized about other women? Absolutely not. Never. And the proverbial, do these jeans make me look fat? There's never a right answer. Well, it goes both ways, right? The questions like no woman wants to be asked, but it seems like they're a little bit more honest than guys are, right? Do you love me for my looks or my brain, honey? Yeah, I love you for your money, You don't have either looks or brains, so there's only one thing left. Did you just say it's my fault? Yeah, that's what everybody wants to hear, right? Do you ever compare me to your exes? Absolutely not, never. So then we come to, what are the questions no board member ever wants to be asked or to be evaluated on? And these are the things that we landed on. So we'll talk about the process and how we got here to arrive at these, but there are 5 different categories that the URE board settled on in this peer review process. First and foremost, they wanted to know about personal effectiveness. We talked about interpersonal communications like listening or expressing your opinions. We talked about self-awareness, demonstrating a commitment to learning and self-improvement, flexibility, building relationships, conflict resolution. Believe it or not, that does happen in the boardroom sometimes. So how you navigate that on a professional level is really important. And the integrity and courage. I think one of the things that you're going to see, we'll get to the end and kind of the results, but the ability to build relationships, the ability to be courageous, especially as a new board member. They point that out. The URE has a newer board member, and while sometimes we know that when we get a new board member, it can kind of slow things down in the boardroom, but they were inviting this new board member to be courageous, to continue to ask questions, even though it may slow things down a little bit or it may make people feel uncomfortable. They encourage them to do that. We talked about vision and strategic oversight, analytical thinking, engages in strategic planning, evaluates risk and thinks about how to mitigate their impact, financial oversight. Again, one of the areas that you'll see and you'll see noted in the video that the URE board really felt from an individual performance standpoint and as a body of the whole is their financial oversight needed improvement. And one of the reasons why that happened is they lost a board member who had maybe what I would call more of a financial expert in the boardroom. That person retired from the board, and I think they just kind of leaned on that person for that financial expertise. That person's gone, and now they think one of the areas of improvement is, and you'll hear them talk a little bit about that in the video. Cooperative knowledge. Again, remembering that you are governing an electric cooperative. Your oversight is governing all the principles that we operate under under cooperative the cooperative knowledge. So industry principles and practices, community engagement and communication, industry challenges, things like that. Individual board member performance. That's attendance, preparation. Preparation doesn't mean tearing open your board packet when you walk in the boardroom, right? It means spending some time reading the materials before you get there. Supporting majority decisions. One of the things that, again, we do this as part of the board self-evaluation, but now we're taking this down to more of the granular level, individual performance, and trying to identify maybe areas where we need some improvement. How well you represent the board, the cooperative in the community, and your ability to stay in your lane in terms of staying in the governance lane and not getting into the management of the organization. Lastly, the legal and fiduciary responsibilities. And all this really comes down to duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of good judgment, conflict of interest, is making sure that when those things come up, specifically conflict of interest, that you declare those. And the fiduciary duties is making sure that you have the proper amount of information to be able to make the decision. And how do you get that? Is you keep asking questions, right? You ask good, productive, constructive questions to make sure that when you are asked to finally vote on a particular issue, you feel comfortable that you have all the right information and that your CEO, your staff, and you are being open and transparent during the entire process. So what I'm going to do is ask the staff to roll the video. You've heard my perspectives on it. I'd like for you to hear from Steve Patton, the chairman of the URE board, and Dale Scheider, who's one of the board members at URE. So let's go ahead and roll that video.
Until a couple years ago, everyone on the board was a director of gold, okay? We've got since a couple new members, but you can see with that commitment, we're always looking for new education and new ways to improve. And so, the peer review looked like a good opportunity to improve our board membership.
I think the decision to be engaged in a peer review program forced us to take an honest look at ourselves. I think quite similar to an annual medical checkup. We may think we feel fine, but the doctor might find something else. And it sometimes is difficult to see that, we can be blind to our own abilities, our input to the board. In my opinion, we have a tremendous board, and I think on a day-to-day basis or a meeting-to-meeting basis are very effective. But yes, you can never be that great that you think you've done it all. So I think we have to understand that the decisions we are meeting today, even more so than just a few years ago, are big decisions, and the consequences of their decisions are even bigger. So we have to be hitting on all cylinders to make sure that the people are heard and that our decisions are appropriate for the membership. Well, when it was first presented as a decision in the boardroom whether we take on a peer review, it's like, gee, that sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, tell me what's wrong with me. A little bit leery at the beginning. Nobody likes criticism, but I think we realized that the quality of the board that we have, we respect each other, and it was done in a very respectful manner, not to knock anybody down, but to build each other up.
But I think to the membership and the members, it just made the members of the board a little deeper, a little more acknowledged about what's going on. As a board chairman, I kind of think it gave me an insight to like an internal temperature of what your board is doing, and I really appreciated that.
Okay, I think the benefits to URE and its members is it helped us to focus on what our role is and understand that in the big picture, we are stewards to those members of all the assets of this co-op. And again, those decisions are big. We can't stumble.
Finance, and one of the things that came out in the review was that there's several of us, including me, kind of felt like that we were a little short on some of the financial information. So like as a result of that, we're going to pursue a little more education on some of the numbers in finances and accounting. I think that will be personal effectiveness, and I really feel like any board member can ask themselves that take this review that it is what are my strong points and what are my weak points and what can I use to improve my effectiveness on the board.
I think just hearing from my fellow members that they really did care, that the input of everybody was important. It helped me to understand that we all have to deal with respect and that we value each other. Reminded by the fact that the membership elected every individual board member on the basis of their qualifications, and that as they have respected those candidates to become a board member, we as a board need to respect each other in the decision-making process as the board.
So one of the things I want to make very clear, and I made very clear with the Union Electric Cooperative Board when they asked me to do this, is to take on a process like this, we are not trying to fix boardroom problems. Like if you have some dysfunction going on in the boardroom, those things, you don't wait for an annual review, to address those. You fix those. The chairman has to talk with the board members and talk about those individual performance issues on a more of a direct basis. What we're trying to do is take what they felt was a high-performing board and make them better. And that's what I think this board peer review program did. A little bit about the process, kind of back up just a little bit. We worked on this probably a little bit more than a year. We started out by establishing the criteria for which they were going to be evaluated on. So you think about CEOs in the room, you're going to evaluate your employees, or you're going to evaluate your, maybe the linemen. You have to establish what the expectations are from service to financial performance, personal development, things like that. So we met, we talked about a whole bunch of different things, and we kind of landed on those 5 categories that I mentioned earlier. We provide the board with the means of assessing. So as I mentioned, we did everything through SurveyMonkey. Every board member had to complete a self-evaluation, and then every board member had to complete, in this case, 5 other evaluations for their colleagues. They had a newer board member that hadn't been in the boardroom longer than a year, so he did the self-assessment. We excluded him from the peer review part of it. And then what we did from there, we kind of gave the results at a high level on those assessments at a full board meeting. Then we wanted to create kind of what we call a continual learning path or personal growth plan for each person. So what I offered is to do a one-on-one coaching session with each one of those board members. Few of them took me up. We sat down and we went through their individual peer review, and we talked about maybe some things that they could change or do better, or more importantly, reinforce some of the positive behaviors that their fellow board members thought they did well and they wanted more of. And so that turned out to be a really good process as well. It turns out the URE board can handle the truth, and that's really what it came down to. They were fantastic, open and honest with each other. And some of the things that we try to talk about, I mentioned, not about pointing out all the problems, and there's another slide that I gave them that had what some of the constructive feedback was, but what I really tried to get them to do, and I would try to get you to do, is focus on the positive behaviors in the boardroom that really make for good governance inside the boardroom. Not being afraid to share your concerns and ask questions. They mentioned, somebody being a quiet leader. We know in every boardroom that I've ever been in, if you have 7, 9, or 11, not every one of them are outspoken. Not every one of you are going to be the first one to talk on every issue. You may be that quiet leader, but still important, that maybe you're working a little bit more behind the scenes and asking questions of the CEO or your fellow board members, but still voicing your opinion, but being respected for teamwork and making sure you're part of that team. They're very loyal to the cooperative and a good listener. That was one of the comments made about, or several people made those comments about each other. The reputation in the community adds value to the co-op. Again, you don't get elected to these boards by accident. It's usually because you have that reputation in the community, and as board members, we try to leverage that. Every co-op should try to leverage that kind of reputation, the community contacts you have, whether that's at the McDonald's coffee shop, or at some of the civil service organizations, things like that. They demonstrate concern for community and public service. The one I like has a great ability to build relationship with others and a great team leader. If the one common theme that we've seen through this evaluation, this peer review, is the term relationships. Building relationships in the boardroom and externally with the membership and the community. And that's a behavior that we try to reinforce as well. Some other things: promoting a spirit of fairness in all co-op matters. They want to do the best for the members and the cooperative. Again, you see that building relationships term again. Cooperative knowledge and history and experience help shape the culture of the organization. Again, we've seen it. When I did this little exercise a little bit earlier and asked you all to stand up, and by the time we got down to the people who had been here in 2016, we were down to what? 35, 40% of the people that were here back then. So look at the transitions you guys have all gone through in your boardrooms and with your staff. And to maintain that culture, you need that blend of people that have been there a little while, that understand the history of the organization, and new people that are maybe willing to challenge the process a little bit. Asking outstanding questions, actively listening, and always well prepared. What's actively listening mean? Does that mean listening with the intent to reply, or actually listening and hearing what the other person said and then formulating what you want, your reply or your contribution? So that's actively listening, not just trying to, hey, I'm seeing your lips move, but I have this thought that I'm going to convey to you before you even finish your sentence. Demonstrating commitment to our competence in the fiscal health of the cooperative, and a positive person shares hope for the board's success. Those are all the positive comments, the behaviors that I think we want to reinforce in the boardroom. And so, they did a great job, and I think we got some great feedback. I think the other thing, that I want to say too is, I think the ultimate compliment to any process or anything that we do is when somebody copies what you do and replicates what you do. The Butler board recently kind of took advantage of this peer review process as well, and did kind of a similar thing. They did it without my facilitation, which is completely fine, but I provided all the materials to Tom. They did their own internal survey work. They've done their own presentation of the results. I've offered, and what Tom and I have talked about, providing some individual coaching sessions as a follow-up to that as well. So I think that's fantastic. So if anybody is interested, talk to Tom, talk to Anthony, or those board chairmen or board members about that. And so one of the things I kind of segue into kind of the board succession planning topic. One of the things I really wanted to explore with our CEOs, a few of them, is what their perspectives were on good governance. What constitutes good governance from a CEO perspective? And so we're going to start out and play a video, kind of putting a bow on this peer review process. But we're going to hear from Anthony Smith in the next video. And I asked him to define it in one word. Anthony defined it as as stewardship. So let's roll Anthony's video.
To demonstrate stewardship with the board, we try to make sure that the board has all of the education and information that they need to make actionable decisions based on that information, not just based on my opinions of the situation. In addition, I want to give them all the operational information that we have so that they can make decisions based on that as well. The board wants to make sure that the organization is operating well. They want to make sure that we're hitting our goals and that we're doing what we say we're doing. So in order to promote stewardship between the board and the CEO and management, it's very important that the board remains focused on their strategic initiatives and oversight of the cooperative. It's also important for the board to hold me accountable to do what I say I'm going to do, and that management is operating in an efficient manner running the cooperative. I also expect the board will foster an open and honest relationship, including one of trust and respect. And that sometimes means they pay attention to the strategic initiatives, the direction of the co-op, rather than the day-to-day operations. And that's something that they trust me and my team to handle. So overall, I'm very proud of our board for having the self-awareness and the humility to move forward in this process, even though it was a bit of an unknown. Through the process, they learned that there are areas in which they can improve individually and as a group, and some of that has to do with education. So I'll be working with the board to make sure that those educational opportunities are available to them, and they'll be able to continue improving as a board through this process in the future.
So, you know, this opportunity to improve, I mean, this is something, you know, you heard Anthony talk about this. This is something that, even though, you know, this is a board improvement opportunity, this is something that you have to work with your CEO on developing and growing as a board. You know, they're oftentimes the gateway of information. And so to make sure that you are being good stewards of the members' resources, you have to ask questions. You have to understand what those expectations are. You heard trust, you heard respect, you heard open and honest terminology, and I think those are all important things. So again, wanted to kind of expand, you know, kind of my knowledge or contributions to good governance. So I posed the same question to Tom Wolfenbarger and Dave Evans, and you know, asking Tom, you know, how would you define, you know, good governance from your perspective at Butler? And you heard Anthony talk about it, and hear Tom talk about his accountability. So let's play the next video.
When I first started, the board and I worked together on a relationship. I used transparency a lot. I was probably over-transparent with a lot of things, being new to the position. But over the 4.5 years, we've gotten more comfortable. I think they understand how I operate, and I understand what it is they're looking for from the general manager. In one word to describe a good board CEO relationship, I believe would be accountability.
So we have a great board. They all show up on time, are very interactive. They all ask questions and know to bring up questions and make it challenging to anything that they want to do and ask for. So one of our big challenges this year as a board is trying to lower cost and keep cost under control. By doing that, the board has enacted in 25 to have a virtual meeting and not an in-person meeting, which is going to be a challenge for all of us and trying to keep the membership happy, because a lot of them, that's a social event for them. And we're just wanting to cut cost and try to still have our meeting and do our due diligence by that.
We try to let the board know what the members are thinking as much as we possibly can for them to be accountable to the membership. And so we promote and we do participate in the ACSI survey every year, and we have one session a year reviewing our scores and what they mean and the comments from the membership. We also, on a monthly basis at every board meeting, review any complaints or compliments that we've gotten from the membership, just to give our board a taste of what the members are saying to us. We also do surveys after every service for the membership, and if there's an issue, we would report that to the board as well. And then we also do a annual summary. I do an annual summary of performance when it comes to my review of what we've accomplished over the years, and that's turned into be a good exercise in showing my accountability for what they expect from me as the general manager.
Our expectations of the board is just having all of them participate, be proactive, stay in their lanes as a board, not try to micromanage. And biggest thing is just be prepared, do your due diligence by reading the board packet and staying abreast on everything, and taking the classes and the online training and training that's available for us. I have a great working relationship with our general manager. Him and I know we can text, call, email, anytime, time of day for any problems or things that need to be discussed or whatever. Most days on board day, we meet prior to our meeting and discuss anything that needs to be brought up or anything we need to do, and if we need to go into executive session. So we have a great working relationship, which is key to being board chair.
When I talk about the annual review summary that I do for the board, we didn't do that at the beginning when I first started, and it's something that got the idea from another manager in the state, and the board really appreciates the information. You know, as you go through the year, there's a lot of things happen that, you know, 12 months from now, we might not remember. And even for myself, I find it a good exercise to go through to develop the summary for them. But then it develops into conversations during my review during the year, and allows them to talk about expectations that they have and new ones that are coming down the pike as far as the membership goes. My job is to help them be accountable to the membership.
Being board chair is challenging and rewarding all at the same time. We are all accountability for our actions and our decisions that we make to the membership. We all have to support each other when we leave the boardroom and support the decisions that was made. And the best thing is the lookout for the members themselves, because that's the reason we are all here.
Tom, Dave, thank you for participating in that. I think some great ideas there. Next, I want to move on. It's kind of a segue into kind of the board succession planning discussion, but I wanted to ask, since we were at the Energy Cooperative, have a lot of respect for Todd Ware and the culture that he has established both in the boardroom and at the Energy Cooperative. So I wanted to ask Todd the same question, and Todd landed on transparency. And just a little bit of a heads up on this one. We're going to talk about good transparency, and we're going to talk about bad transparency, and you'll understand what I mean here in just a second. If you would roll that video.
So over the years, my relationship with the board has strengthened. It's really strengthened because we have confidence in each other. We better understand the things that I need, or I need them to understand how I operate with members or the board or employees. I also have a much better understanding of the information that they need and that they need to work with to be able to do their jobs. I always try to make sure that they have information so that they have the confidence when they're out dealing with members to understand what's going on. If I was to think about one word in the relationship between my board and myself, I would use the word transparency.
When did you know that Grandma was the one?
When her sister dumped me.
Grandpa, was my dad a good athlete?
No.
Oh, Dad, you remember my friend Alex?
Yeah, one who had the work done. Good to see you.
Where do we go when we die?
The ground. Who's your girlfriend?
His name's Chad.
And that's where babies come from.
Sometimes being too transparent can be a bad thing.
I want to go a little further than that under transparency, though. I think there are really three things under transparency that are very important. The first is being open and honest. I think the second thing is trust, and the third thing is confidence. So promoting transparency with the board takes a willingness for all parties to be open and honest. I think it starts with the trust between the CEO and the board. I try to keep them updated so that they're sure that they have all the information that they need. I want them to have no surprises if a member stops them along the way. However, their information is always at a high level so that they can reiterate that to the member without getting into the details which they're not as familiar with. Balancing the right amount of information is tricky. Because of the trust I have with my board, there are times when I may cross the line and share more information than I really should. However, because they've never betrayed my trust and they are always willing to understand where I'm coming from, I continue to do that. At times, we also go back and discuss what my role is, what their role is, and whenever they have drifted over into my areas, we always discuss it up front and reset and move on from there without any issues. So the board is always very open and honest to me when they do have executive sessions, which rarely happens without me. when they do happen, they always bring me back in the loop and discuss those issues that they talked about. Because of the trust level that they have with me, they always directly talk to me about issues. And one of the nice things that's always happened with this board is they've never played games behind my back. So I always feel like I understand where they're coming from. We review our policies on a regular basis so that the board and myself understand exactly what our roles and duties are. And they also have an excellent review process for me, so I get regular feedback, at least annually, and we can talk about those issues. And they also allow me to give them feedback about issues that I might be having with them. Because of the transparency and relationship that I have with the board here at TEC, I feel like we are able to get a lot of things accomplished. I feel like we have a very good, open, and honest relationship, and we have confidence in each other that we're doing the right things for the members every day.
Todd, thanks. And thanks to the Energy Cooperative. So it's a great segue into kind of our next topic, which is the board succession planning. And so you heard this mentioned a couple times today about member advisory committees. You heard Matt reference the Cherryland presentation we had a number of years ago and their ambassador program. Again, kind of makes you feel good when you come out of these conferences and people actually implement things that you present. And this was one that the Energy Cooperative kind of heard the same presentation about the ambassador program at Cherryland Electric Cooperative, and decided to kind of tackle their own ambassador program. And you're going to hear from a few folks at the Energy Cooperative about that program. So let's roll that video, please.
I'm glad you came in. I really wanted to speak with you privately for a few minutes. I have been thinking about some things about the future. I've been around the company a long time, and I'm really thinking about who's going to replace me. This person I'm thinking about has been very important in this company and has produced a lot in a very short period of time, and I believe continues to show great potential. And so I'd like to share with you who I think this person's going to be, because I think you need to know. I gotta show you this guy. He is unbelievable. Hang on just a second. Helen, do me a favor, bring in Mr. Cross, please. Wait till you see this guy, you're gonna love him.
Did you want to see me?
So in my first 6 months here, our board of directors voiced an interest in really trying to gain more director nominations. And we know that many of our members don't really understand the cooperative model, and especially the director election process. And so as we started to kind of discuss things and consider, we stepped back and decided that maybe it would make a sense to have a program where members could really be a part of that and learn the actual process in the cooperative model, really reflecting back to those two principles, principle 2 and 4, right, that are democratic member control and education. And so we set out to create a program that would really accomplish those goals.
Well, we concentrate heavily on our succession plan. We have for several years. We get an update every year from our HR director, Connie Hogue, and she gives us a rundown from the top of the staff, from CEO through the senior staff, and 4 and 5 employees deep. So it just makes sense after we see how much emphasis we put on that, that we look at our own board succession. Most directors, like myself, look forward to being reelected. So when it comes to admitting that at some point we will be replaced, I've always said that I want to make sure that I have a good qualified candidate that'll step in and take my place. So we started going along with the ambassador program, and that provides us with a good field of candidates to possibly step into our seats.
Members have the opportunity to apply, and we have an application that includes questions to obviously confirm they're a member and really dig into a bit of why they want to participate. Once we've been able to review those applications, feel good about everyone, we take it to our board of directors for them to review it, make our selections from there, and then obviously send out the communications on the details of what that program, the program sessions look like. So our current ambassador program includes 4 sessions right now, and we do those sessions once a month, and they're 2 hours each month. And each session includes 2 subjects surrounding, obviously, the cooperative. Within those subjects, we go over the general model, we go over gas and electric operations, we do the typical safety, marketing, member services, HR, and IT. It's really awesome to watch some of these ambassadors go through this and have hands-on experiences where they can ask questions, interact with our leadership, and even witness things like pipe fusing and things that they've never seen. And so we've had some really awesome situations with our ambassadors to dig in a little bit, learn a lot more, and ask some of those questions.
The ambassador program teaches possible community leaders to learn the cooperative model, business model, and they can bring fresh ideas and new perspectives to the boardroom. If we do have somebody go through the ambassador program and comes on board as a director, it lessens the disruptive nature in the boardroom. So that has to be, if it's a smooth transition, that's got to be a real plus.
The vision that we really have is to increase participation and honestly to get back to telling what the cooperative story is. I feel like having been here 3 years myself, that story gets lost. A lot of people don't understand it. They don't really even know, if they're a new member, what the cooperative story is. And so in the ambassador program, we work very hard at taking it back to its roots. We work very hard at making sure we're educating the members and really overall making sure they realize what their rights as a member are. And so we've seen that come to fruition in these last 2 programs. So measuring the impact of the program so far isn't all that easy considering how early on it is in the program, having only had 2 in a couple years. But we have had some feedback where we've seen impact of our ambassadors talking to other community members, bragging about us, being excited about the program. So ultimately, we know that's only going to get better. And actually, as of this week, super exciting, we have a nominee that is one of our ambassadors in our director election this year. So that, I believe, would be another reason to believe that the program's working and that it's slow momentum, but it's absolutely worth it in what we're seeing.
I found out about the ambassador committee through my mom, who was on the Roundup board at the time. Our family has had a long history with Energy Cooperative. My dad was the first chairman of the Roundup Foundation when it was founded a long time ago, it seems. So we have a special place in our heart for it. So I found out about that, and I decided at the point I was in my career in real estate, I thought it would be good to add that knowledge and apply for the Ambassador Club, and ended up getting it and enjoyed it. So as far as the Energy Cooperative, I knew of it as an energy provider between natural gas and electric through LRE, but at the same time, I didn't really understand the depth of reach that the Energy Cooperative had until going through the Ambassador Program. The impact that Energy Cooperative has in the community, it's not just in Newark, Ohio at Granville Street. It's at a facility in Hebron. It's at a facility in Utica. It's at lay yards on the western part of the county for expansion out there. Between electric, natural gas, and propane, there's so much growth that the Energy Cooperative has seen and created throughout the community. If someone came to me and said, I want to be a director of the Energy Co-op, I would first say to them, what do you know about the Energy Co-op? Because you can't just run to run. You actually have to be engaged and understand the energy business in a small sector, but still have that knowledge.
So I think you've seen a lot of, a lot of variety here. The last panel discussed admire and acquire. I will tell you that I'm going to say never is kind of a dangerous term, but I would say most good ideas that are implemented either at the statewide level or in the electric cooperative network come from you. Whether that's bringing an idea about a board peer review program or an ambassador program a member advisory group, whatever the case may be. Those ideas come from you. We try to help. We try to find a way to say yes, to find out what our role can be and how we can help advance that knowledge. But I just want to wrap things up by, just sharing with you, just some a summary, things that you can work on, as governors of your co-op, as the oversight, some of the pitfalls to avoid, failing to fulfill your fiduciary responsibilities. We talked about that, making sure you ask good questions, making sure you have the information that you need to make good, sound decisions, making sure you're complying with all your bylaws and code of regulations, things like that. A common mistake, failing to provide effective oversight. Again, understanding the word oversight and not managing the cooperative, the day-to-day operations. So providing that oversight, micromanaging staff, insufficient conflict management. To have a real honest conversation with you all in this room, we have a tendency to go along to get along in boardrooms. and in our cooperative network, we all want to be liked. We all want to get along. And so, a lot of times those conversations happen outside the boardroom in the parking lot where maybe I didn't agree with the decision, or I had just that one more question, but we're going to take the vote, and I was the one going to, maybe didn't have all the information. So, making sure you just, air those disagreements, or make sure you ask those questions inside the boardroom, not outside. If you do have questions about, a complex topic, all 23 CEOs in this room, I think, would agree, pick up the phone and call, in advance of the board meeting. If you don't understand something, we got a really important decision, give me a call. I'll be happy to sit down with you and explain, why we're asking you to make this decision that we are, and give you more information on it. And then just failing to hold your executives accountable. Again, accountability goes both ways. You have accountability to the membership. They have accountability to you, their staff to them, things like that. So making sure that we hold everybody accountable. The keys, you heard everybody talk about it. You heard the word transparency a number of times, being open and honest. You heard Anthony talk about good stewardship. You heard the word accountability repeated a number of times. Relationship building, proactive communications. The one I added last night was co-op first, members first. I always tell people when we're at the fork in the road, when I do strategic planning or any other kind of governance training, is when we come to the fork in the road, are we thinking about the members? Are we thinking about, just getting reelected? Are we thinking about this or that? What is best for the members of our cooperative? And when you arrive at that decision and you put them in the back of your mind, in the front of your mind, when you make those decisions, you're always going to be right. And so with that, I just want to say thanks. That is all I have. I want to thank you for listening. If there's anything I can do to help facilitate good governance practices at your cooperative, I'm willing to help. I'm willing to say yes. And so I appreciate your time. Thanks.